Germany, that's crazy because the UK's growth from before the pandemic has only been 1.8%. Germany's has been 0.3%.
The only G7 country to technically be in a recession. They had negative growth the last 2 quarters.
Yes, they are. Germany is suffering mightily, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them being demographic decline, which is happening kind of across the world in the advanced world. But they were just handed a decision from the highest court in their country that is absolutely handicapping their government.
So brutal.
It's hammering them. So the court ruled that the government couldn't use 60 billion euros, that's around $65 billion, of pandemic era money that it was expecting to have for the 2024 budget. So November 16th, the court found that the plan was unconstitutional because they say it violated the debt brake. Now, I think we've talked about this in Germany before. They have a mechanism called the debt brake, which restricts Germany's budget deficit to 0.35% of GDP. Okay, that's only about 15 billion euros.
That is not enough.
No, that's very, very small, especially with some of the challenges that Germany is currently facing, right? So one of the challenges that they're trying to address is climate change and its emerging energy needs and its desire to point that money and their efforts in the direction of renewable energy, given they've been cut off from Russian gas, which they had been addicted to for years before Russia invaded Ukraine. So they wanted to use this 60 billion euros in pandemic money and put it into its climate and transformation fund. Now, it looks like it's not going to be able to do that. Okay? And also, so the debt brake had been suspended, and it can be suspended for emergencies. It was suspended for COVID in 2020 and 2021, and then again in 2022 because of continued fallout from COVID, but also because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Mm-hmm. The problem is they were citing still the 2020 and 2021 COVID emergency as the reason to be able to use the $60 billion in 2024. And the court was like, no, you can't use it for a different year that you actually declared the emergency in. So even after shifting around the budget a little bit, this ruling is looking to leave a 20 billion euro gap in funding needed for the Climate and Transformation Fund, which is just brutal, right? This is exactly when we need that money. This is exactly when Germany needs to be transitioning with as much fervor as it can to a green energy economy.
And what I'm understanding here is a lot of the 60 billion was supposed to go to revamping its public transportation. A lot of it was supposed to be going towards its train systems, its bridges. A lot of it was supposed to be going towards its hard infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked that hard infrastructure isn't an exception for the debt brake.
Really?
I'm shocked. I would think, like, what's a more safe investment? Like, if you want to, listen, it was passed by, the debt brake is new in German politics. It was passed in like 2010.
Yeah, relatively new. 2009, I think.
2009, something like that. It was under Angela Merkel after the 2008 recession.
Yes.
And they were like, we need to tighten up our pants or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was like their line. And it was very, very popular because it made people feel like the government was being responsible.
Exactly.
Well, sometimes it's actually very, very irresponsible to not take out debt when debt is cheap.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we saw in the 2010s decade, where we had cheap capital that couldn't be utilized because of the German debt brake.
Totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
They could have taken out more money then, but I understand, like, if you're going to have this debt brake, right? It makes sense to me that you don't want to over leverage your nation on risky investments. Like, if you want to, it's not probably a good idea to fund social services through deficit spending. Fine, I get that. Funding infrastructure through deficit spending seems like fine to me because it's a positive, it has direct economic benefits.
Yes.
It increases mobility. It increases how fast you're able to move goods. You know what I mean?
It's just much safer.
Just a much safer investment. So I would think that they would have included a provision to exempt that, but they didn't. So now they're screwed.
Now they pretty much are screwed unless they reform the debt brake. Because now the German parliament, at least some of German parliament, is thinking the exact same way you are. It's like, okay, taking on debt can be risky, not taking on debt can also be risky,
Yeah.
especially right now. So the court ruling came out on November 15th. That was a while ago now. We're recording this on December 5th. So since then, the German Prime Minister Olaf Scholz has asked Parliament, one, to suspend the debt brake again, to declare that the current challenges that they're facing constitutes another state of emergency. The finance minister has said he will pronounce 2023, so like the end of this year, a year of emergency, which frees him up to suspend it so that they can borrow for the rest of this year. But he is still really reluctant to declare a year of emergency for 2024 because Lindner is in the CDU, the Christian Democrat.
No, Lindner is in the FDP, the Free Democrat
Yes,
Party.
the FDP.
Yes.
Thank you. Which is very much neoliberal, very much free market. It doesn't like heavy government spending. So he doesn't want to do that for 24, but he might still have to. The Greens and the SPD, which is more the center-left party, they're calling to reform the debt brake. Economists they hate the debt brake, especially at this point. They're like, this is just a complete straitjacket for this country. It's been in a recession. It's been the slowest growing country in the G7 since the pandemic. And this is the reason. It's because they can't borrow when they need to. When everyone else is around them is borrowing and infusing money into their own economies, Germany can't do it.
And I think this is a fantastic example of two different ideologies, austerity or Keynesianism, right? You had two different responses to recession. You had the U.S. response, which was fucking Keynesianism, right?
Yep.
It was send people with kids money, get everyone a check in the mail, get everyone access to better healthcare. Bam, 7.4% growth since pre-pandemic levels. Germany, don't take out any debt at all for any investments.
Yep.
Don't produce your infrastructure. Don't have a real heavy-handed industrial plan. 3.3% growth.
Yeah.
Two totally different philosophies of what government is supposed to be doing. And shockingly, the U.S. is on the left compared to Germany, which I wouldn't be thinking I'd be saying.
Yeah.
But it's what it is.
It is wild. And yeah, the history is really interesting with when they instituted the debt brake, because they were looking around at like Greece and Italy, where the rampant spending did kind of destroy their economies. And they wanted to be the standard bearer at the front of the EU of fiscal responsibility.
Yeah,
they wanted to be able to go into those countries and say, you're doing this wrong, and we have the standing to say that to you because look at how we're doing it right.
Right.
But things change, and the absolutism in any of these financial or these economic ideologies is the wrong way to go, and this is proof of that.
Yeah.
So you're right, I think, about public transportation. Other plans that this hole in their budget will probably affect are a plan to build out a network of over 1,700 EV chargers across the country, as is a plan to build up Germany's backup power generators, which are completely necessary to be able to build up its renewables, because those power generators need to be online to cover the moments when the renewables are intermittently offline, right? Sun doesn't always shine, wind doesn't always blow.
Dude, this is bad.
Yes, this is extremely bad.
Germany just does not have the capital to do this anymore. They do not. They need to start taking out debt, and they need to start growing again. They're screwed.
Exactly.
And I know there's nothing you can do about the demographics. Okay, there really isn't. I mean, they can accept more immigration, but I don't think the country is prepared for that. No, I don't think they have the political appetite. But
they would be a perfect place for it, though.
I know.
Ugh. I mean, Ukraine. Yeah. Anyways.
But now Germany, 0.3% GDP growth. They are struggling massively. And because of this difficult economic position, it is leading them to subvert Russian sanctions, which is so sad to see.
Yeah.
Basically, right after the Russians invaded Ukraine, the entire West as a bloc was like, no more business with Russia. Don't do it anymore. Well, when that happened, we saw spikes in German exports to 4 countries: Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, Georgia, and Kazakhstan. Kyrgyzstan saw a 70% increase in exports.
Yeah.
Armenia saw like a 20-30% increase. No, wait, hold on. I'm not going to get all these things wrong. Point is, they all went up a lot.
A lot.
Okay, Kyrgyzstan, a lot. Now, what do all 4 of these countries have in common? They have free trade agreements with Russia.
Yeah.
So by Kazakhstan, Georgia, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia getting all of these German goods, they're not staying in these countries. They're not staying in Kazakhstan.
No.
Of course not. They're getting shipped up to Russia. Russia is still getting German goods through this backdoor method, and some of it is motor vehicle and motor vehicle parts.
Yeah.
And that's helping the war effort. Germany is explicitly helping Russia with the war effort by allowing their corporations to sell to these companies. And it's not cool. It's not good.
No.
It ruins their credibility. It makes me it questions their it makes me question their reliability.
Definitely.
You know, because it's like, how are you letting this happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously they know about it.
Yeah. Well, how can you rely? I mean, just think about this in terms of people. You can't rely on someone who's in desolation, who's extremely desperate.
True.
Right? You can't trust them to do the selfless thing in that case.
It's crazy that I'm sitting here talking about Germany being in this desolate situation, right?
Yeah.
It's Germany. In 2010s, I was talking to my dad about this, and he was like, what do you mean Germany's having trouble? Germany's Germany. Germany's like the economic powerhouse of Europe. And I had to, be like, no, actually, Germany's like the worst performing country over the last couple of years. And he's shocked. It's like this psyche that people have baked in about the German economy that it's always perfect. Well, now it isn't.
No.
And they need massive, massive reforms to really change it. And it doesn't look like people are really looking forward to it, because we see the AfD rising in the polls. We see the CDU still get some power. The FDP has gone down a lot, but that's because the FDP voters are mainly moving to the CDU. The SPD is going down. The Greens are going down.
Yep.
The Left Party is going down. Only ones that are going up is the hard right. And they don't have an answer to these questions except for anti-Muslim rhetoric.
Totally.
They don't have any other answers.
Well, I think it's extremely counterproductive, because as the demographics set in as the problem that they are to hurt the economy, as more working age people age out of that group,
Yep.
The worse the economy gets, the more people think that something needs to shake up the system, and the more they point to populist anti-immigration rhetoric as the way to do so, when in actuality, immigration is
The only thing keeping them afloat.
like
in some
one
ways.
of the only things that could save them, that
Yep.
could help them.
No, it's crazy. It's sad. It sucks.
Yeah. But it just keeps happening.
But it just keeps happening. One more thing I wanted to say here. Bavaria recently passed a very, very important piece of legislation. Bavaria is on the front lines of fighting the largest problems in Germany right now. They just passed a bill that would limit any government forms from having gender-neutral language. So we're glad they're there.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, like that's what they're focused on. They're focused on removing gender-neutral language from goddamn federal paperwork.
I heard a story recently of someone who visited Bavaria and told some like a German, I don't know if it was their hairdresser or something, that they had gone there, and the German person sneered and was like, "Oh, Bavaria," and my friend was like, "What's wrong with Bavaria?" And she was like, "It's like the Texas of Germany."
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. It's so funny because they've been the Texas of Germany for so long.
Yeah.
Like if you go back and you read about like 30 Years' War, the war between the Protestants and the Catholics in the early 1600s, they were so like this reactionary powerhouse.
Yeah.
And they've always been this reactionary powerhouse. Anyway,